Welcome to A Change of Heart podcast. I'm your host, Angel Walston. And in this space, we navigate life together. We ask the hard questions like, what is the truth you haven't told? But most importantly, we grow together. And sometimes that leads to a change of heart. Hey everyone, welcome back to A Change of Heart podcast. I'm your host, Angel. And if you're tuning in for the first time, hey girl, welcome to the potty. And if you're a returning listener, hey girl, hey, welcome back. Today we are going to be talking about taking inventory, and there are three specific areas that I want to focus on for that, but really just taking the time to think about what are the things that you're doing? What are the things that you enjoy, the things that bring you joy? What are the things that have been serving you well? And what are the things that really haven't? And really just starting to think about, okay, what we need to do about this. Because I have been in a space of self-reflection in this specific area. And as I was just kind of thinking about the things that I feel like serve me well, the things that no longer serve me, I was like, this will be a good conversation for the podcast. So here we are. So make sure that you share this episode with a friend. And listen, y'all, I think y'all can tell by now, I don't know if I'm feeling the question of the day this season. I don't know what it is. I think it's because I'm not on social media like that. So having to repost all the responses to it, I just don't be feeling like doing that, to be honest. So I'm trying to decide if going into season 5, if I want to do a different approach for the question of the day or how we want to go about that. So we will decide that between now and season 5. But before we jump into today's topic, I do want to let you all know we are wrapping up season 4, okay? We're wrapping up season 4. Next week will be the last episode of this season, and then don't fight me. Season 5 is not going to start until the new year, okay? So we're going to take the remainder of October off, November and December, but we're going to come back prayerfully in January. That is my plan right now. But next week's episode is not going to come out on Thursday, okay? It's not going to come out on Thursday. It's going to come out on Sunday, okay? It's going to come out on Sunday of next week. There is a reason for that, and it will make sense once it comes out. But that will be the last episode for this season, and I'm excited to share some things with you. So that's that. All right. So I said that if I didn't do a question of the day, I would do a story time. And this isn't really a story time per se. I'm just kind of letting you into something that is convicting / challenging me. And I was talking to 2 people yesterday, actually, about how I feel like I'm in a space where I'm really having to confront the fact that I have the ability to do certain things well, just naturally. And because I have the ability to do it well, I don't steward it well. And what I mean by that is I have a tendency to not be prepared, put things off until the last minute, do the bare minimum because I know I can just like get through it. And if you need an example of this, it's the podcast, y'all. I be winging it a lot of times, and we get through it like it comes together. I'm not going to act like it just falls short. It comes together, but I've been relying on the fact that it always comes together, even when I'm not necessarily prepared for it, or if I do it in the last minute. And I just don't want to continue to do that because even though like I have a natural like gift for gab when it comes to the podcast, I don't want to take for granted that this is something that God has given me to steward. And I do want to steward it well. And I think about when I first started it, season 1, season 2, and even season 3 to an extent, I was like really excited about it. And I'm still excited about it. I don't want it to come across like I'm not. I still enjoy doing the potty, still love y'all. But I was really excited about it. I was recording episodes like 4 or 5 weeks in advance. I had notes and everything. And although that was a lot of work, I was really intentional about it. And I don't even be promoting the podcast, y'all. Like, I've been very lax when it has come to this season specifically. And I've just been feeling like really challenged to steward the things that God has given me better because I've been procrastinating. And I was sharing with my life group yesterday that I came across this quote. This was like a year or two ago, and I don't remember specifically what it said because I couldn't find it again. But it says something along the lines of, procrastination is the prideful assumption that God will give you another day to do what he told you to do. And I was like, every time I say that out loud, it's still loud every single time. Like, it still hits. And it's a reality because we're not guaranteed another day. We assume that there will always be another opportunity to get things done or to do what we said we were going to do. And that's just not the case. Like, anything can happen. And I do just want to be very intentional about making sure that I'm being obedient to what God told me to do, but I'm also being very intentional about stewarding the things that he's given me, the gifts, the things that he's allowed me to do, that I'm really being intentional about showing up for those in my full capacity, and not just going through and winging things just because I know I can get by. So that's just something, a space that I'm really working on, being challenged in, and trying to navigate and figure out what that looks like. So yeah, girl, that's where we're at. But jumping into today's topic. So, as I said earlier, we are talking about taking inventory, and there's three specific areas that I want to look at in regards to this that I'm specifically focusing on. But there are also things that may be specific to you that I may not cover. So, take the time to do a little inventory self check for yourself, and just really be honest about what are the things that I need to look at. So let me give you some context to how we got to this whole conversation in my head. So I was having a conversation with one of my good friends, and I was just telling her, like, I'm in this space where I'm ready to purge. Like, I want to get rid of stuff. I am feeling not necessarily frustrated, but just really starting to take inventory of things and think about, what is it that I need to be focused on? What is serving me well? What no longer serves me? What are some things that I need to give up? What are some things that I need to look at? What are the areas that I'm feeling very filled and fulfilled in? And what are the areas that I'm feeling very depleted and frustrated in? And as I was talking to her about that, she was like, girl, I feel like you're nesting. I feel like you're in your nesting season. I'm like, I am. I really am, just in a space because I feel like in this last year alone, I've just been in this season of transition. Like, everything has just been a big transition for me. And as I have been transitioning, I am transitioning and still also in preparation for transition. I have just really been thinking more and more about, what are the things that are attached to me that cannot go into this new season? What are the things that I'm carrying? What are the things that I'm doing? Even people, if necessary. Like, what is it that is attached to me in this season that I cannot continue to carry? Or adjustments need to be made with how I'm carrying it. Because sometimes it's not a matter of everything and everybody need to be cut off. That's not necessarily always the solution. Sometimes it's about how you're carrying, not what you're carrying, but how you're carrying it. Because some of us are taking on more weight, more responsibilities. We are doing more than we should or need to be, even with certain relationships. And I really want to be intentional about just looking at those things and taking inventory, essentially, of my life, where I am, and making the adjustments as necessary. So, the first area that I've been thinking about as far as taking inventory is, what am I doing? Like, what are the things that I am doing? And am I doing them because I really enjoy it? Am I doing it because I feel like it's an obligation and I feel like I have to do it? Am I doing it and I hate it? Like, I don't even like doing it. I'm just showing up and doing stuff. Like, what are the things that I am doing? And as I'm taking inventory of them, what are they? Do they still serve whatever the purpose was? I feel like as women, we have a tendency to always put our stuff on the back burner. And there are going to be circumstances, obviously, where you have to be very mindful of someone else. You have to really set your own stuff aside for a moment so that you can show up in a different area of your life. And this can be, sometimes it's with work, sometimes it's because you're a mother, because you're a wife, whatever it might be. And I'm not necessarily saying there's anything wrong with that, but sometimes we get so in the routine of setting our stuff to the back burner, or we've just been doing something for so long that it just becomes second nature for us to completely forget about the things that do serve us well, that we don't even recognize. Or it's not so much we don't recognize the things that no longer serve us, but we will just continue doing it because it's what we've always done. And so I want to challenge you as you're taking inventory in this specific area of what are the things that I'm doing? I want you to ask yourself, what are the things that I am a part of, the things that are attached to me, the things that are associated with me? And these can be, I'm saying things, but these can also be people. We're going to get to that in the next part. But what are those things? And when I take inventory of how they're impacting my life, am I in a space where I want to really continue this? Do I even want to continue to participate? Or am I doing it out of habit? Am I doing it out of routine? Am I doing it out of people pleasing? Because that is definitely an area that I have struggled with, and even have noticed lately that thing been trying to creep back up. And I had to like, mink, 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 mink. Like, we're not doing that. Like, what are you doing here? Where did you come from? So just take a moment to really think about for yourself. What am I doing? What is on my calendar? What is filling my schedule? What are the things that I'm doing right now that really bring me joy? What are the things that I really love, that are filling my spirit, that are really just making me excited about life? What are those things? And if you can't think of anything, if there's not one thing that you can pinpoint right now, that is an area for you to take inventory of and say, we got to make some changes, because we were not created to just go through the motions. We were not created to just exist. God wants us to have a fulfilling life as we serve him. And sometimes we are just going through the motions. We are literally just out here existing. We are just out here doing things because this is what we know to do, but you're not fulfilled. You're not doing things that are really genuinely cultivating joy in your life. You're not doing things that light you up. I remember being in a space prior to starting the podcast, or maybe when I started the podcast, actually, now that I think about it. But I just felt so deflated, if I'm being honest. There wasn't anything that really was sparking creativity for me. There wasn't anything that was really sparking joy in me. And I really felt like I'm just going to work, church, and paying bills. And I was like, I don't want that to be my life. Like, this is not fun. I don't want to be here. I hate it here. Not necessarily hate it here, but it's like, I don't like it here. And once I started doing the podcast, I'm like, I really enjoy this. I love connecting with women. I love being able to help women in this capacity. Like, this is something that genuinely cultivates joy for me. I lead our young adult life group at my church. That is something that genuinely cultivates joy for me. With that being said, I also have to throw in this caveat, because I have to find the balance in that, because you also don't want the thing that you do to solely be the thing that cultivates joy for you, because if you stop doing it, then what happens? So there is a balancing act that comes with that to be mindful of. But I want you to really think about, as you're taking inventory of this specific area, what am I doing? What are the things that I'm doing? How am I showing up in life based off of what is on my to-do list? As you start to take inventory of that, really think about, how can I cultivate joy? How can I bring little pieces of joy into my life and into the things that I do? This doesn't have to be a complete turn your life upside down. It's going to feel overwhelming. You're going to feel like you don't know where to start. You're going to feel like you're letting something down or you're missing something. Start with something simple. This doesn't have to be anything that is for anybody else. Yes, I do the podcast for other people, but it is still something that brings me joy, right? It's not something that feels like a chore. I do enjoy doing it. But also, sometimes I go for walks, and that ain't got nothing to do with nobody but me. Find something that you can do that really is just for you, that sparks joy, that sparks something on the inside of you, that like brings back that creativity, that brings back that passion, that brings back joy for you. Find something that does that for you, because I don't want us to just be out here just we're just here. We're just existing. Life was meant to be lived, and I want us to live a life that is full. I want us to live a life that is fulfilling. I want us to live a life that is filled with joy. And I don't want us to miss those opportunities because we're just going through the motions. We're doing what we've always done. We get up, we go and do the same thing all the time. And it's like, what do you have to show for that? How are you feeling? How is your mind? How is your heart? Are you satisfied? That's a question I've been asking myself in certain areas. Am I really satisfied doing this? And there are going to be times where you do need to check your flesh. Like, there are definitely going to be times where it's like, all right, this ain't about how I feel right now. And it's not always a feelings thing, because your feelings are fickle, right? Mad wishy-washy. You don't know what version of you might get some days. But also be honest with yourself. And we know the difference. We know the difference when it's like, all right, I'm moody. It's that time, whatever it might be. I'm just not feeling things right now. I'll get over it, versus I'm in a funk or I'm in a slump right now because I'm just going through the motions of life and I don't feel fulfilled. I don't feel excited about life. I needed something to make me excited about life again. And the fact that I was at that point, I'm like, all right, we got to clean house. Like, we have to make some changes, because I wasn't, I felt like my light had not even just been dimmed, but that it was completely out. And it's like, I don't enjoy a lot of things that I'm doing. So why am I doing it? Like, why am I doing it? And I talked about in another episode, it's like we put ourselves in situations where we're doing all of these other things that we really aren't feeling, that don't serve us, that we really don't want to do, that we don't even have the energy to give to the things that we really care about, that we really like, that we want to do. That's crazy. Let's stop doing that, okay? All right, moving along to the second thing. That is, as you are taking inventory, ask yourself, what are my relationships looking like? So I want to look at this from two angles, because on one hand, for me, where I'm at right now, I am looking at it kind of in both ways, honestly, but leaning more so towards one way. So one of the ways that I'm looking at it is, what are my relationships looking like as far as those who are part of my inner circle, like my girls, the ones who I do life with, the ones who know my personal business, the one outside of the podcast, right? Like those who are in the trenches with me, like who knows my struggles, who knows the things that I am preparing for, the things that I'm excited about, the things that I'm scared about, the things that I am still like in my head about. What is the health of those relationships? Am I showing up to those relationships at the level and capacity that I want to, and that I'm able to? Because we have to acknowledge that as well. I think that sometimes we can overcommit ourselves, even in our solid and healthy relationships, in ways that we're not really able to fully show up because of different circumstances, whatever it might be. And we can feel like we're letting people down when we had good intentions initially. But I want to be really intentional about making sure the health and quality of my relationships, of my inner circle, are solid, because I'm I'm in a space where I'm really valuing my friendships more right now. And I don't even think, and I hate to say this, I don't even think that my friends really know that. And that's something that obviously I should tell them. But I'm in a season where I'm really valuing my relationships with the people who I do life with, because they have held me down in ways that they don't even know. And I realize, even just in saying this right now, look, you're getting a little emotional, but we're not going to cry on the potty. But I'm realizing that I haven't always shared that with them. And I don't think they know the full extent and capacity of how they have carried me through seasons where I felt like a failure, where I felt very alone, where I felt like I didn't know what I was doing, where I felt like I was messing up. And just being able to spend time with them, just being able to be honest with them, being able to have like honest conversations about where my headspace was, something I may be dealing with, something I may be struggling with, and know that I was in a space that I wasn't going to be judged, know that I was in a space where I let me say this because I want to preface it in a way that I know I know what I'm called to do, right? I know what my purpose is in life. I know what the anointing is on my life, and I know that I have the ability to help women specifically, to encourage them, to empower them. I'm very aware of that. And I don't take issue with that. So let me make this very clear, because I don't want what I'm getting ready to say to come across as a complaint or a negative. I'm very well aware that people come to me for advice. There are people who look up to me in different capacities. There are people who value what I have to say, what I share, and things of that nature. I'm aware of that. And I've accepted that fully. With that, however, there are also times, more often than not, when I need someone to be that to me. And I'm genuinely grateful for the spaces that I'm able to be me without having to be Angel the minister, Angel the podcast host, Angel the author, Angel the one who's giving the advice, the encouragement, all like I'm genuinely grateful for the spaces that I get to show up as just Angel without any expectations, and not even, I shouldn't say any expectations, but a lot of the relationships when you're someone who's always giving the advice, encouragement, all of that, they can be very one-sided, if I'm being honest. And I'm aware of that. I've been able to navigate those types of relationships well, or so I think at least. But to be able to have spaces where it is mutual and you're able to receive and be poured into in the same way that you pour out, top tier. Love it here. And I'm just genuinely, like, my heart is just genuinely grateful for the women who I do life with right now, the women who I talk to. And when I say who I talk to, this is not an everyday kind of thing. Some of my friends I do talk to every day. Some of them I may talk to once a month. Sometimes we just send memes to each other and we talk on the phone once every 3 months. And the relationship is still solid and secure. But I'm just genuinely grateful for those relationships. And I'm going off on a tangent, so let me bring her back in. But in taking inventory, what are your relationships looking like? It's just reminded me to be really intentional about who is here right now. And I'm not on some no new friends things. I'm not on that. The dynamics of relationships going forward may look a little differently. Not going to deny that. But my focus right now is really on who are the women who I'm doing life with, who I feel you are supposed to be in my life in this season. Because here's the thing, and we'll go into the other side of it. I genuinely believe that everybody has a purpose in your life. I believe that 100%. Everyone that you come into connection with, they have a purpose. And sometimes the purpose, we end up creating a purpose that we didn't have to because we entertain people that we should not have. That's a different podcast. But ultimately, every single person that you come into connection with, they have a purpose in your life. I do believe that there are times when people serve their purpose and those relationships run their course. And there is nothing wrong with that. I think we have to be okay with, one, accepting that dynamics change in relationships, And that's okay. Like there are going to be some instances where it's like, okay, you done changed up. Like let's talk about this. But it's okay when dynamics change in relationships because there can be a variation of reasons of why that can happen. But also understanding that sometimes relationships just run their course. It doesn't have to be an argument. It doesn't have to be this fall out, we hate each other or anything like that. But I believe when a purpose has been served, the grace be lifted. like, and I remember being in a friendship with someone who we're no longer friends, no bad blood, no hate there, but you could tell towards the end it was being forced and it was uncomfortable and it was awkward until there was finally a conversation where it was like, this isn't working and I don't think we need to go forward. Sometimes you have to take inventory of your relationships in that capacity as well. And that's not a negative thing. Yes, it can be uncomfortable for sure to have those kind of conversations. And listen, friendships ending are just as traumatic and hard as like romantic relationships, if not harder. But sometimes you have to, a part of taking inventory of your relationships and what they're looking like, it also looks like, okay, are these relationships still serving me? And if not, I don't hate you. I don't even dislike you. It's just there may be a shift in how we engage, how we interact, and there's nothing wrong with that. I think that we have kind of been conditioned to believe that if something is no longer working, that it's like it has to be, oh, well, we hate each other, we don't speak to each other, anything like that. It doesn't necessarily have to be like that. I know that there are some circumstances where it's like, you know what, we need a clean break and you go your way, I go my way. Also, nothing wrong with that. But I think it's a part of healthy communication. And sometimes you have to have those difficult conversations. It's something that's necessary. And as you're taking inventory of your relationships, really just thinking about, does this still serve me? And if not, it's okay if the answer is no. Like, don't be afraid of that. This also goes with romantic relationships. I know that there are times where we may stay in situations that it's easier to stay than it is to start over, but easier how? Take inventory of that. If you've been in a relationship for years, and whether you're married or not, and I'm not trying to tell nobody to get divorced, so don't don't walk away from this and be like, Angel told me to leave my husband. Listen, don't. Hey, I don't know your situation. Don't take it out of context. But you do have to just consider like, okay, where in this relationship, how am I being fulfilled in this relationship? How am I showing up in this relationship? Because you got to take ownership for yourself too. I think it's also important within this conversation to have a level of accountability and awareness for you to be able to see where you may fall short as far as the areas that you need to take inventory of as well. So keep that in mind. But the relationships that you are in, whether it's romantic, family relationships, friendships, really think about what are the ways that I need to be showing up better? Because it's not always about lacking. It's not about what am I lacking? How does this no longer serve me? Because there are areas that we may be lacking in too. But you also have to have an honest conversation with yourself to say, listen, everyone is allowed to have their own expectations, right? You can have expectations. Not everyone is going to be able to or willing to meet what your expectation is. There's nothing wrong with that. But understand that there may be a dynamic shift. There may be a change as a result of that. But you have to be willing to acknowledge, am I able to meet this person's expectations? An even more honest conversation. Do I want to meet these expectations? If the answer is no, respond accordingly. That's okay. But I do think it's necessary for us to be able to have a level of accountability, have a level of awareness, and to really acknowledge the relationships that I have right now. Are they fulfilling to me? Am I showing up as my best self? Are there relationships that I need to let go of at this point? Are there relationships that I want to be intentional about strengthening, that I want to be intentional about pouring into? What are the relationships? What are they looking like for me? And what do I need to do to either show up better, to adjust? What do I need to do? And really just thinking about the people who are part of your inner circle, people who may need to be in your outer courts going for it. Just taking a moment to really reflect on that and take inventory of the situation. All right, so the last but certainly not least area that I want to talk about in regards to taking inventory is what cups are full and what cups are depleted. Because, baby, like, that is something that I'm really having to confront because I do a whole lot of things on E. And sidebar, this is a brief story time. I work out with one of my friends, and you know how when you're driving, it'll be like 30 miles to E, 40 miles to E. It's typically like once you get under 30. I am the queen of pushing it to the limit when it comes to gaslight been on and I'm still going to drive. And I was meeting up with her to work out, and it said, I want to say maybe like 13 miles to E, and the line was below the E. I ain't even gonna hold you. But I was like, oh, it's 13 miles to E. There's literally like was a gas station at the corner of where we were working out, almost at the corner of where we were working out, less than a mile. I'll get gas once we're done. Y'all, why I pull into the parking deck, and as soon as I was like pulling into the parking space, that 13 miles to E went to zero. And I was like, oh my God, like, I'm about to be out here stranded. But I was able to get to the gas station. Everything was fine. But anyways, slight detour there. But I have a bad habit of not just driving in a very literal sense of driving on E. I also have a tendency, just life wise, of operating on empty. And I don't love that for me. I don't like it for me. I don't love it for me. But I am having to really take inventory of this area of my life because, as I mentioned earlier, I feel like I do a lot of things last minute. I feel like I wing a lot of things just because I'm able to get it done. And a part of it comes from me being tired, a part of it comes from me being depleted. And I can honestly say, as I'm reflecting on that, there are things that I can change. Like, I am literally in a position where I'm able to change that. I've made a choice not to for however long. And as I was taking inventory of this specific thing, it's like, what areas of my life, whether it's spiritually, mentally, emotionally, physically, what areas do I feel like my cup is full? What are the areas that I feel like, okay, I'm really being poured into in this way? I'm really being built up in this way. I feel really solid. I feel really secure in this area. And then what are the areas that I feel like we on life support over here, baby? Like, we are over here struggling. If I'm honest with myself, there's not one area that I can say, I feel really full in this area. I feel like my cup is full in this area. And that's crazy for me to say, but it's honest. And the fact that I'm able to acknowledge that now and I'm aware of that, we're taking inventory because changes have to happen. Changes have to be made because there's no way that I can continue as I have been just because it's like I've been able to do it. I've been able to go through the motions. I've been able to get things done, but I am depleted in a lot of areas of my life. And that's crazy to me. It's like, no, ma'am, we're not doing this going forward. And I want to challenge you as you are thinking about different areas of your life. And you can start just with the things I mentioned earlier: mentally, emotionally, spiritually, physically. What areas do you feel like my cup is full in this way, in this area? What are the areas that you feel like, okay, I feel supported, I feel strong, I feel like I have some overflow? And then what are the areas that you feel like we're over here, I don't know if we're going to make it. Like, we're over here struggling. What are those things? And then start thinking of practical ways that you can make the adjustment. Because I don't want you to take inventory and acknowledge all these things and don't make an adjustment. You don't make any changes. It's great to be self-aware. It's great to know what the issue is. It's better for you to actually put in the work to change it. and to make the changes necessary so that you don't find yourself continuing to be in that situation. You think about when a store takes inventory, they're checking to see like, okay, how much do I have for this? How much do I have for that? To make sure that they don't run out. We don't want to be in a situation where we need something and we're not able to tap into it because we run out. You don't want to be in a space where you need hope, when you need encouragement, when you need something to lift you up when you're in a really dark place and you don't have it because you weren't poured into spiritually, or you don't have it because you weren't being intentional about taking care of your mental health. These are things that we really need to take inventory of, because you don't want to wait until you are completely depleted and you run out and you're in need of something in that area. You can't even tap into it because you don't have anything to tap into. So as you're thinking about what are the areas that my cup feels full, what are the areas that my cup feels depleted, if you don't feel like there's any area that you feel completely full in, that's okay. And I don't think that that's abnormal, honestly. I think that there are going to be seasons where we may feel like we're on the top of the world and it feels like every cup is partially full, maybe full, whatever. You may have those seasons. They do come. I will acknowledge that. But I also think it is not abnormal to be like, child, I'm juggling. I'm just trying to do the best I can with what I got. I get it. I 100% get it. But I just really want us to be intentional about taking care of ourselves. Because when we take care of ourselves, we show up better in this world. We show up better in our relationships. We show up better in our friendships. We show up better on our jobs. We show up better with our family. And I want us to be intentional about taking the time to be healthy, to be healed, to be whole, and showing up as our authentic selves. That's what I always say at the end. Be whole, be healed, be authentic. I want that for us because a lot of us may show up irritable. We may show up frustrated. We may show up hurt. We may show up broken. And we don't allow ourselves to really be our most authentic self because we have all of these areas of our life that is depleted. So the version of us that is showing up is angry sometimes. Our inner child is having full-blown tantrums that are showing up in our adultness. And we have to take inventory of those things. We have to really take the time to address, deal with, acknowledge, heal from all of those things so that we can really show up as the best version of ourselves. And not just for other people, but for ourselves as well. Like, I want to be the best version of myself for me. And I know the overflow of that shows up in my relationships with everyone else. When I like me, I know that I'm showing up better. I know that I'm showing up well in other aspects of my life. So I hope that this was helpful for you all. Take your time to take inventory, and feel free, I haven't been saying this, but feel free to email me. You can email me changeheartsquestions@gmail.com. You can message me on Instagram at Angel C. Walston. Don't message me on Facebook. I'm going to be checking my Facebook Messenger, and I already got a whole lot of messages I have not seen. So if you message me on Facebook, I'm probably not going to see it for a couple months. I'm not even going to hold you. But Instagram, I do try to check my DMs, although I'm behind on those as well. But I say all this to say, feel free to let me know what you're taking inventory of, or how I can be praying for you as you're taking inventory of these different things, because it also can be challenging when you start to realize like, oh, dang, I didn't even realize like I was depleted in this area, or I didn't even realize this is something that I really need to be stewarding better, or things that I need to be showing up better in. Feel free to shoot me an email. Feel free, if you have my number, feel free to text me. Feel free to DM me and let me know how I can be praying for you as you are becoming more aware about these different areas, and how I can support you. So I hope you all have an amazing week. Until next time, don't forget, be whole, be healed, and be authentic. And also don't forget, next Thursday, there will not be an episode on Thursday, but there will be an episode technically next week, and it will come out on Sunday, and I'm going to share something that I've been holding on to. Okay? All right. Have a great week. Thank you so much for tuning into a Change of Heart podcast. I hope you were encouraged, and please take a moment to share with a girlfriend, and don't forget to download the episode. Lastly, I would love to connect with you. You can follow me on Instagram at Angel C. Walston and at A Change of Heart podcast. Have an amazing week, and don't forget, be whole, be healed, and be authentic.